Welcome to Beyond the Margins, the podcast, the place where we engage, educate, empower, and elevate. I'm your lead learner and host, Dr. Sohn A. Each week, I sit down with some of the brightest minds and dynamic leaders in education to challenge traditional narratives, especially those shaping the experiences of students at the margins. Together, we explore new ways to reimagine schools, classrooms, and learning communities as spaces for growth and transformation. At Beyond the Margins, we center students too often overlooked, sharing the stories, strategies, and ideas that matter most. Voices long pushed aside are brought to the center. Welcome to Beyond the Margins. Did you know that neuroscience shows a student's sense of belonging directly impacts how their brain learns? Research tells us that when learners feel they belong, the brain's threat response quiets, cognitive capacity increases, and motivation rises, allowing deeper learning, persistence, and confidence to take root. But when the students feel unseen, misunderstood, or disconnected, the brain shifts into survival mode, making engagement nearly impossible. Belonging isn't a soft skill. It's a biological prerequisite for learning. And today's guest shows us what happens when culture, family, and community create that belonging early, and how educators can recreate it with intentionality. We are joined today by Mr. Hakeem Croom, educator, community leader, mentor, and living proof that presence changes trajectories. In this episode, we break down what it means to educate the whole man, mind, body, and spirit, and why belonging, relevance, and courage are all non-negotiables in schools that truly serve Black boys and men. Help me welcome Mr. Hakeem Croom. Welcome to Beyond the Margins. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. This is Mr. Hakeem Croom himself. Welcome.
Man, thank you for having me on your podcast, man. I'm excited to be on Beyond the Margins today.
It's a blessing, man. Hey, look, you're blowing up. Every time I click on LinkedIn or social media, I see you. People want to talk to you. People want to get your input. So please give us the origin story, man.
I usually start off like my story is rich and complex, a rich complexity. I like to kind of, analogize it that way. But my upbringing from New York City, from Harlem, New York, grew up, was born in 88, that time in the 80s, the height of the crack era, in New York City and a lot of, cities across our country, being, decimated by the crack era. But growing up, in the late 80s, early 90s, most of my childhood, growing up in Harlem, New York, I grew up right across the street from Rucker Park and Polo Ground Towers. Polo Ground Towers used to be the old Giant Stadium. They demolished the stadium back in the 50s to create Polo Grounds. It was kind of an inflection point for my family at that time, going in 88, where, my mom and dad, worked, they were doing their thing, but in late 80s, early 90s, they got swept up in like substance abuse, during that time. Okay. Where it really impacted, our family dynamic. So I ended up actually being taken away from my home. I went into foster care. I was with a woman in Brooklyn who had me for a bit. My Aunt Charlene, my dad's sister, came and got custody of me from the woman from Brooklyn, and I stayed with my Aunt Charlene for about another 6 months to a year or so while my mom and dad, got cleaned up, man, and got their situation together. So the blessing was I was able to be reintegrated with my family, right? Being able to be back home. My mom and dad, got their act together as much as they could, but battled with substance abuse for the rest of their adult life. Mm-hmm. But, the rich complexity of New York City, of Harlem, growing up in there, the richness was the culture, being immersed in culture everywhere I went, reinforcement of culture, living on Frederick Douglass Boulevard, walking on Malcolm X Boulevard, walking on Adam Clayton Boulevard, going to high school like A. Philip Randolph Campus High School, having Toro Schomburg Center. The reinforcement was really pivotal, but the rock, the foundation was my family structure. Although my mom and dad, they had their struggles, they was amazing people that had a vision, for their family, and wanted to take one of their kids to do and take it further than they did. And my mom graduated high school, did 2 years of community college at LaGuardia Community College. She didn't finish. My dad didn't finish high school, but they emphasized education. It was like a value in our home. We had a bookshelf, we had books. Yeah. Even when we got in trouble, Dad was like, "Y'all gonna read Roots, y'all gonna read, the autobiography by Malcolm X." Even as discipline, it was like you reading, what I mean? And so that was a pivotal thing. And even in our we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. So the way our apartment was structured, we had pictures of Marcus Garvey on the wall, Malcolm X, MLK, Harlem
Mhm.
landmarks. A quote that I remember, to this day, Marcus Garvey is, "Up, you mighty race. You may
Up you might
accomplish what you will."
what
You
you
know what I mean?
will. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I remember seeing that as a kid, but still remembering those things and having that kind of etched in my spirit and my psyche. That really was a foundational anchor as far as culture and what the possibilities could be, and being able to see black juggernauts and people who were, who did amazing, work not only here in America but globally. You know what I mean? So that was really big. I was a kid at the tons of potential. I was talented and gifted, for most of my elementary school time. But it was, in those environment, man, it's poverty, lack of resources, exposed to a lot of things. So the kids come to school with a lot on their plates, a lot that they're weighing. You know what I mean? Family issues. I was like one of the only kids in my peer group that had both their mom and dad at home, right? So like
Right.
having my mom and dad married in the same household was like a rarity. My pops was at home signing my homework every day, going to parent teacher conferences, but we poor. I want the Jordans. I don't care about that. I want to look fly. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But having my dad and my mom, it was something I didn't know was so impactful. Only looking back in retrospect, as far as knowing like, wow, like that really set a particular way in which I thought and looked around the world and relationships, just having that stability. Ended up going to A. Fuller Randolph Campus High School. A. Fuller Randolph Campus High School is connected to City College, the CUNY. City University of New York is right near City College on 135th, which is like a mile away from where I grew up in Polo Grounds. I was there for 2 years, and another inflection point happened. I was a hooper. You know what I mean? So I was like one of the only at that time. My freshman year, I was the only freshman to make varsity for that year at my high school in Randolph. It was like a super dope, time for me to be the only freshman, the youngest on the team,
I
trying to get
bet.
my
I
playing
bet.
time. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was incredible, man.
I can
Hooping.
imagine.
Yeah, it was dope, man. But one of my teammates ended up going to a military boarding school in Virginia, in Waynesboro, Virginia, Fishburne Military School. He left our school, and at that time, I didn't know like what happened because he had lost his twin brother. His twin brother was gunned down. He kind of was in the street, but also trying to figure it out with school and like trying to stay on the straight and narrow. But the streets kind of tugging at him. A young kid losing his brother. You know what I mean, to gun violence. At that age, you want to get your lick back. You working through the
Mhm,
emotions. You know what I
mhm.
mean, and like how we were raised and socialized. He was trying to figure it out, but he went away for about 8 months. So during that time, if your homie go away for 8 months, it's like either they locked down, they not
Yeah,
here no
or worse.
more,
Yeah.
whatever or worse, right? So he was away for like 8 months, and he came back. It's like 2004, my sophomore year of high school. He came back to Randolph to visit, and I saw him. He crossed paths like, "Yo, how was good, bro?" Like, what I mean, I'm at this military school, bro. I'm killing it, bro. I eat every day. I'm around white people. I'm killing them, bro. It's amazing. That's my eyes got big. I'm like, bro, I want to go. Like, if that's what is going on, I get to like get out the hood and see something different. Especially during that time as a hooper, going to like a private school or a prep school to go hoop. Thinking about the Oak Hills, all these other schools that had,
Mhm.
that you had to leave to go to. I'm like, yo, I want to go. I mean, that's
Hoop
the ticket.
the
So
hoop dreams, the original
the
hoop
hoop
dreams, right?
dream, the
Yeah,
original hoop dream, man. So,
yeah.
he ended up telling like the admissions counselor about me, the folks on the administration, the basketball coach, luckily he was the man of the team. So they took his word
Mhm.
for it. And, from like May 2004 to like September, I was like 3 months. I'm going back and forth with the administration from the school, my family, my parents. One of my biggest advocates was my oldest brother's ex-girlfriend who went to Claflin University. One of my biggest inspirations. I told her about the proposition of going to Fishburne. She said, we got to go to Harlem and tell your mom and dad immediately. So she came,
Right,
advocated for me, came to my house, told my mom and dad. My dad was very apprehensive. He like, hell no, you're not going to the South. Like, you're not going to, at that time,
right.
it's like, he was from Kinston, North Carolina. So that was his purview of the South. Like, he left the South to come to the Northeast. My mom, being a mom, what I mean? She worked the magic on him. A couple days later, he came back, different kind of an energy tone and,
Yeah.
and really, really thought about what this could mean, not only for me, but just our family. So they decided to let me go. I got a full scholarship. Me and my dad hopped on a Greyhound bus from Times Square, went to Virginia.
Yeah, so let's pause right there on the
For
bus to
sure. Gotcha.
Virginia,
For
right?
sure. Yeah,
So
most
so we're
definitely.
on we're on the, I'm assuming Greyhound with Peter
Greyhound,
Pan,
man. Pete Greyhound
South
for
on
sure.
95, right?
Bro, bro.
So before you leave Harlem,
Yeah.
who were some of these other, male influences
Man,
or,
so many.
icons or compasses that you were looking at as indicators of masculinity?
Man,
We're
that's a
talking
great
about
question.
Harlem impacting you and shaping you.
Man, great question, bro. I think I had so much. That's why, like, the story I tell, like, what I'm doing now is really connected to this because I had so many people that poured into me, man, like, that saw potential. So, first and foremost, my mom and dad, my pops, strong
Okay.
man. had his flaws, but was somebody that was a prideful man, proud to be a father, proud to be a husband, walk with his head high, despite his flaws. Right, we all human. You get to humanize your parents, but for what he did and what he provided, he was that rock as far as culture, loving your history, loving your people.
Mm-hmm.
He really emphasized that. So me loving history came from my dad directly. Me knowing that I wanted to be a husband one day came directly from my dad. Then my brothers, they got parentified at 13 and 12. So as soon as I came, mom and dad was like, take Hakeem everywhere you go.
Yeah,
I was
for
their
sure.
shadow, man. You know what I mean? I'm hooping with them. I'm with their friends. Their best friends became my other extended big brother. So, one of the things they told me early, I'm in elementary school, they told me be a leader and not a follower. And I'm like, leader who? What is that? What is leader? Like what is leadership? I'm 8 years old, like, and they're telling me to be a leader. So I didn't even know what leadership meant, but they told me at that age, elementary school, be a leader, not a follower. So my little 8, 7-year-old brain, what I thought that was okay, if everybody doing this, I got to do this. You know what I mean? Think for myself. If everybody on the corner, they on the Ave doing whatever, I'm over here, right? If folks is out late on the Ave or doing whatever, getting into whatever quick scheme, whatever, in the hood. So that was my conception of like leadership. But they gave me that in elementary school. And so that was something that was big as far as understanding what that meant. I remember vividly the principal rather of our elementary school was Mr. George Young, man. And so he was a pivotal principal, black man, strong, advocate. Back in the day, we would call him like MLK, making fun of him, but it was like, yo, we love seeing him. He was there, had a presence, so many school aides, Mr. Cal, Mr. Wilson. Then I had OGs in the hood that was like, back in those times, like the OGs in the hood really pride themselves on like, yo, even though what we doing is wrong, what we doing is this, like you got the potential, you got this. So if we see you doing something that's out of character, this ain't your lane, stay in your lane. Sure.
But now let's get back to the bus. We're on the bus going 95 South. You have the seed of leadership planted in you from your family, from your community. You got your skills together. The crossover is nice.
Spin move, you know what I mean?
Fadeaway is nice, right? And so, I mean, just by getting on, like that's a big step.
It's a huge step, man.
Both know people who live their whole lives without changing zip codes.
Huge step,
so
man.
You're 16, you headed to the South. Pick it up from there.
Man, I was a fish out of water for a bit, whole different world. But I was ready, you know what I mean? It's like opportunity met preparation. I always had this hope and optimism. I'm on a bus, man. Our first day, we get to Waynesboro, Virginia. We in the boonies, we in the sticks, no buildings, no sidewalks, you know what I mean? It's mountains, it's greenery. The air is crisper, you know what I mean? So the first day, me and my dad, they put us up in a Quality Inn hotel for the night. You know what I mean? I got $3 in my pocket, you know what I mean? I leave the hotel, I see a Domino's, you know what I mean? I walk into Domino's, straight, city kid. I walk in, I say, hey, can I get a slice? And they looked at me looked at each other like, slice? Like, we only sell pies, sir. I'm like, I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? Like, what's a pie? You know what I mean? So I ended up getting a Sprite for dinner. I had to obey my thirst, but I had a Sprite for dinner. I tell folks that domino story was the domino effect for the rest of my life, man. So when you go to military school, it's an initiation process. So like your first 30 days or so, like you have a different status than everybody else. You got to learn the traditions, learn other things about the school. You have to earn your keep in military school. You have to go through something called a rat status, right? And as a New Yorker, the word rat got different implications for you, right? So one of the first days I was there, one of the guys that was a commander for another company, he was a senior. I was walking the wrong way in the stoops. As a new cadet, you had to walk counterclockwise. So I'm walking clockwise, like I don't know what I'm doing. It's like my second, third day. All I hear is rat, stop walking, rat. And I keep walking because I'm like, I ain't no rat, bro.
Can't be talking to me.
Yeah, can't be talking to me because I'm from New York. That's different. You know what I mean?
That's
so
that's
the last thing I want to be called. So I'm walking. He like, rat, stop. So I finally people they was talking to me, and I get upset. I'm like, who you calling a rat, bro? Like I ain't no rat. I ain't snitch. My boy Aaron kind of hears us, talking back and forth. Aaron comes out. He said, bro, not that kind of rat, bro. It's rat, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, it's rat status. The cultural difference.
Cultural dissonance that happens to us so many times as black men, right? Or especially as black boys.
Black boys that
misunderstanding. Navigate. But
sure.
that could be jarring. Yeah.
It could be jarring, man. Sure. It could be jarring, man. I mean, but from there, bro, I definitely it was the best decision I ever made. Smaller classrooms. I went from going to A. Fuller Randall, being in classrooms with 30 other kids. Sometimes not enough books go around, and the books that you do have might be missing pages. So now I'm in French class with two other students, you know what I mean, learning
Mhm.
conjugating verbs in French with three other people, getting extra attention. So my grades went up exponentially. And I remember early on, and it was the dope thing about my story. I've had like not only my own people, but white people, all people from all over the world pour into me in different ways, in different seasons to like just to give me that extra like nudge I needed or that extra affirmation I needed or validation I needed at the time, especially as a young kid. So I was in
Mhm.
history class. We had a professor at the time named Major. We call everybody by their rank. He was Major Hair. He was like one of the popular teachers. You know, I'm in history class. I'm not really talking a whole lot and kind of gauging like how I could like engage with the class. So he must have felt something and knew I had something to offer. Now I
Yeah.
remember one time he dismissed the class and he said, "Cadet Croom, you stay behind for a second?" Like, okay. I'm like, "What's going on?" It's like, he looked at me, he said, "You belong here, son. You belong here." And I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, I do belong here. And after he said that, bro, I just took off, man. I went from, being a private cadet, like as far as my rank, in 2 years being a battalion executive officer, which is the second in command out of a corps of like 180 students. So I'm like the second in command, which at that time was very rare. Like a lot of folk
Mhm.
cadets were there 4, 5, 6 years to even get to that point of being an XO or BC. So to become an XO in 2 years was a testament to like that leadership being ready, an opportunity met preparation and just taking off from there.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that out.
Yeah,
One of the concepts I speak of in my book is that idea of self-determination.
for
And
sure.
one of
That's
the
it.
key tenets of self-determination is that sense of belonging. I belong here, and so I can now fully actuate myself in this environment. So until
Exactly.
you get that, it's kind of hard for us to make that leap
For
without
sure.
them bringing you in this new environment where
New
people are
environment.
calling you rats and you have this cultural dissonance on top of geographic
Facts.
distance.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
these are things that are stacking on top of each other.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was very different
for sure.
from your experiences prior to that. Can you
Way
speak to that a
different.
little bit?
Way different. Just way different. With the whole different world. One of my friends from Tanzania, somebody a lot of wealth. But the thing about military school too, like what I appreciated at that time, as far as like my first step outside of my environment, like what it really helped in that time was that even though I was in immersed in different cultures, multicultural kind of environment, like with the wealth part and like socioeconomic status and things like that, like the way military school is structured, you really didn't know. Like you didn't really see it flaunted in your face. We all in military gear, tunics,
Mhm.
BD boots and stuff, military tours, and we have a shared common experience. So like I was able to connect with folks from all over the world that is, and that was really dope as far as the relationships I was able to make, and just being able to have a worldwide view and lens of things, and kind to trying to really expand my worldview. And so
Yeah.
playing ball was incredible. Hooping, of course. I went there on a mission, killed it on the court. Graduated high school. It was
Mhm.
super incredible. My parents, I had a cousin, my brothers came, really incredible time. All of these like awards and things. It was super dope. So just being at that time, like really on fire around like what the possibilities were, being the first in my family to go to college, right? So I was a
Mhm.
first generation student, just that leadership alone as far as blazing the new terrain for my family line, as far as taking this next step. All male college at that. So going from an all male military school to the all male
Or
college,
Mill College.
so going there just alone with a kind of a sense of direction, like having a better sense of who I was, like as far as my identity, my confidence level, my capabilities and things like that. So from there, going to Hampton, Sydney, it was different because the socioeconomic stratus was different. Like, cause like you could see folks with wealth there, right? So military school, we all got military clothes, different. You don't see
Okay.
the wealth. So I go to this
Got you.
school and like I'm seeing folks driving Range Rovers and Benzes, 18 years old. I don't even got my license. I barely got a bike. Kind of seeing the
Yeah.
differences going on. So that was really eye opening for me. But my first day of school, man, August 26, 2006. I'm there. I'm excited. Orientation, learning about the school, getting acclimated. That evening, I go play ball. My teammates, meeting each other. We get around the hoops in. Go back to the dorm. Me and my roommate. His name is Carlis Trops. He's from Riga, Latvia, right? So I remember talking to him about the Soviet Union, and he's asking random questions about like why Americans so fat, why we eat so much. And I'm like, I don't really know. Like this is what I'm used to eating. You know what I mean? Like, but just have those conversations. So that night we get ready to get some sleep, and so we get a knock on the door. And get a knock on the door, and it's a gentleman, a dean of students. Say, hey, I'm David Klein, dean of students. Are you Hakeem Croom? I say, yeah, I'm Hakeem Croom, sir. Good to meet you. He's like, no, I'm sorry to give you this news. We just learned this. We learned earlier today that your mother passed away earlier today. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so having to leave, devastated, bro. Just like, you know what I mean? Like, wow, like mom was sick, going in and out the hospital, but you
Mhm.
never can anticipate or forecast like
Right, right.
when that happens, man. So it happened my first day of college. If I had to go back to New York City, go back to Harlem with the family, lay mom to rest. Here I am, at a time where I'm at that point where I do something that's never been done for my family. First
Mm,
generation student, it's like high, then it's like get hit with a devastating blow of losing like my best friend, losing my mom and somebody out
yeah.
that I made promises to finish school and do all the things I was doing. So I decided when I was in Harlem, like I'm not going to quit. I'm gonna keep going, push forward. You know what I mean? And I ended up going back to Hampton, Sydney. Went back on a Greyhound bus again. I get to Farmville around 4 a.m. 4 a.m. in the morning. Get off the bus. All my teammates and coaches are there waiting for me, man.
Wow.
It was an incredible
Wow.
thing. You know what I mean? Then we go from
That's
4
that
a.m.
belonging again.
That's
That
that belonging
belonging
again.
showing up again. Yeah.
It's that belonging going again. Then at 6 o'clock, we go for 4 o'clock. They greeted me. At 6 o'clock, we had to lift. So it was a long morning for us all. But just seeing them pull up for me and show up, and
Mhm.
even and not even with just anything to really say, or no one even know what to say. They just there with their presence
Right.
alone, like, hey, we got you. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I tie that in, that sense of belonging. But just the leadership side for me as somebody that's like, yo, I'm gonna finish what I started. I'm going to continue my education, continue blazing this path, and really work and trying my best to do what I can. So I think with the leadership side, that was one thing. And then from there in college, I got an internship with Columbia Teachers College my freshman year, working in El Barrio in Harlem, so Spanish Harlem. So I was
Okay.
assistant teacher in 5th grade. I majored in economics. So I went to college thinking I wanted to major in econ, maybe go on Wall Street. I'm trying to be a investment banker, doing working for Morgan Stanley or whatever, JP
You
Morgan
got to the
Chase, whatever.
bag.
Get
Yeah.
to the bag, right? So kind of after I had my internship at Columbia Teachers College, I'm in El Barrio working with these 5th grade kids, man. And it was a rough summer because it was like I'm young, I'm doing my thing, I'm partying, teaching, at the same time these kids gave me a run for my money, but it was like such a dope experience because
Yeah.
at the end of the summer, and I wasn't expecting it, but at the end of the summer, you know, they all ran up to me in the schoolyard. They're like, Mr. Hakeem, we love you. Thank you so much. They
Mm.
crying. Thank you for what you did for us. And I'm like, I couldn't tell because the way y'all gave me a run for my money this summer, I didn't know. But they were just that feeling of like fulfillment and like, being that representation, what I mean? Especially as a black male educator, a black man in the space and helping to give them something for a lot of students, they may have not had exposure to experience with a black man in that way. And so from there, I just say, yo, this is the way I want to go. I love that feeling, and I want to be able to impact lives with the youth and with young adults, with people that way. So that kind of was that jump start. I mean, to me wanting
Mm.
to go into the educational arena.
When a person comes and bring themselves, it just opens up the educational space for the people that's learning. So my question is, when you hear the phrase or when we talk about educating the whole man, right? The
Sure,
whole individual,
absolutely,
not just the academic part, but
yeah,
in your story, you had a lot of other things impacting you outside of the classroom. When you
yeah.
think about educating the whole person, what does that mean for you today as an educator?
Oh man, that's a beautiful question. That's like a mantra, man. It's all for me. Educating the whole person is holistic education, mind, body, and spirit. It's liberatory in nature. So even when it comes to education, a liberatory framework, even what I do as far as education, just how I think about education is like liberating beliefs, inspiring action, and transforming lives. Right. So that's like the tagline I live by. You know what I mean? With
Mhm.
what I do outside of education, but it's all connected with mind, body, and spirit, and being able to holistically support a student, right, and making sure they see beyond what they can see and what they can imagine for themselves, and really bringing what's already dormant inside of them out. Right. There's so many gifts and talents and things that folks have that may not know that they have, or may be afraid to show, or different gifts, don't have that support or the exposure, or know, or
Right.
have a roadmap, or have strategy, or like knowing all these different things. So for me, it's the mind, body, and spirit of like serving people holistically with in a liberatory way. Because education, Malcolm X said it best: education is the passport, to the future. For
Mhm.
tomorrow belongs to those that prepare for it today. So like education, especially, is like one of those things where it opens up a world of like possibility, unlocks your potential. It connects you to other people, gives you a sense of just like sense of like you can actualize yourself through
Yeah.
education. I mean, when it comes to being able to think about how you want to live, right? I always ask students
Mhm.
like not what you want to be when you grow up, it's like how you want to
Yeah.
live, right? And like what
Right.
problems you want to solve. Like how do you want to make yourself useful to other people? And then from there, work reverse engineer back to like where you are now. Are you doing the things now, taking the proper steps, or adopting the right
Mm.
mindset to actualize those three questions, right, in the future for yourself. So
Yeah.
everything that I've gone through, I'm so thankful. I get moved every time, man, with how God is like put me in these different centers from Harlem like to Waynesboro, Virginia, and Farmville and California and all the things in between. So I bring such a wealth of like experience, relationship, how I navigate institutional settings, how I could be a bridge builder with different people, a natural connector, having folks, students and folks that I can work with in California, but connecting to folks in Virginia, New York. I lived in
Yeah.
Boston. So all just the vast ecosystem I've been able to have access to and to learn from and to help to like transform lives means everything. And I think, for me, man, it's such an honor. I'm a privilege to be in this kind of a position and
Yeah.
be a vessel in this way through the industry of education.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. We can tell when you speak that you are
Yeah,
truly a vessel for the
sure.
people you serve. But you touched on something very, very important about tapping into the interests and desires of the people and back mapping it,
For
right?
sure.
Can we
Yeah,
drill
yeah.
down on that? Because what I find in education is we often prescribe things to students based on either what's available, what's convenient, or what's traditional,
Yeah,
right? But if we ever slow down long enough to ask those pertinent questions
for sure.
and listen to the responses, then we get a better informed
Yes.
decision-making process. So let's
Yes.
drill down on
Let's
that
drill
a
down
little
on
bit.
it, man. Man, that's a great one, man. Back it up a little bit as far as 30,000-foot lens of education, right? Like, as educators, we'd be remiss to say and admit that education had it was created with a particular goal in mind to keep people
Mhm,
indoctrinated in a way to like be great workers, right? Prescribe certain things to them. And then you double down when it comes to our community specifically, when you look at the data, when you look at the public school system, and is it really serving our students and our babies to the best interest, right? One of the things that I've had to cut against the grain because, and to be honest, and like to take that risk because although I occupy the space that I live in, I also understand like the ramifications of what education is not doing and not preparing folks to like live
mhm.
to the vision of their life and the vision of
Yeah,
what they want to live for themselves. And maybe what's not, the traditional 9 to 5 job or whatever it may be. So like asking these questions really gets students to think about how do I want to live? How does education help me to get some of that skill, to adopt some of that mindset to get me there? But it's not the end all be all, right? So when it comes to the work that I'm doing and the conversations we're having, it's like really pushing against the grain and being forward thinking, right? And understanding that like there's multiple ways of education, right? So like homeschool, regular school, whatever you decide, but also understanding that like, the financial ramifications of school, right? When it comes to college and have folks make better decisions based
right.
on the financial implications of like a degree, have a strategy, right? So if you want to go into STEM or whatever you want to do, really road mapping it, right? Because I'm your generation to my generation, we were just told just to get to college, go to college, get a good job, do it, prescribe certain things,
Yeah,
right? It's like, okay, that framework no longer
yeah,
serves us. It
yeah.
no longer serves us
Perfect.
anymore. So now we have to reimagine like what that all looks like now, right? So just getting a good job isn't enough. Does it actually bring you like fulfillment? Does it actually bring you all these other
Purpose.
things, purpose,
Yeah, yeah,
meaning?
that's the
You know
missing
what I mean?
ingredient.
You're missing an ingredient. How do you actually flourish in life? So now it's like
Right.
kind of taking the education as a slither of the pie of like the
Mhm,
a whole pie of like human flourishing, right? What does that look like, right? And how do we get you to that part, right? And like and
mhm.
being brave enough, bold enough, courageous enough, being willfully defiant in these spaces, because like as somebody in there, I've lived it, so I can speak
Yeah.
directly to like, nah, that's because for example, right in college, I was as an econ major, right? I'm in econ class with professors where they're giving us all the theoretical frameworks of economics, right? Which is useful. We need to know about elasticity and all these other
Yeah, yeah,
forecasting and
yeah.
all of that. That's great.
Right.
But then a lot of those professors weren't actually business owners or entrepreneurs, right? And so there was a disconnect between theory and practice. So you give
Mhm.
me all the theoretical stuff, but in practice, you really can't speak to like what it looks like to be an
Right.
entrepreneur. So for me, it's having that bravery. What I've noticed, what I've stepped into, is that a lot of educators struggle with like taking their own gifts and maximizing it to like create their own business and be entrepreneurial, adopt the entrepreneurship mindset because we've been uh, indoctrinated to believe that F is a failure. You don't want to fail. You're scared of failure, but in that
Mhm.
entrepreneurial space and all these different things and taking leaps of faith, you got to embrace failure and take micro failures and fail forward. So you're using the other part of your brain really. You've been told one thing, don't fail, and then like in this space, you have to embrace
Yeah.
it. So like
Yeah.
and so for me, being a walking example of like what I'm saying as far as education is like, how do you like maximize all the things you get from education, still be entrepreneurial, have an entrepreneurial mindset, have fulfillment, have flourishing in your life, and really define things successful for yourself and not be prescribed things through this machine and these cogs of like education that has a particular purpose for how they want folks to live. So as an
Right.
educator, we gotta be courageous and really and approach it that way. So that's the approach that I take.
Beyond the Margins, the podcast. We'll return in a moment.
Your Divine Journey, LLC, is here to walk with you through life's ups and downs. Whether you're seeking therapy, life coaching, support, or personal consultations, we provide a safe, empowering space to heal, grow, and step into your best self. Your journey is unique. Let's make it divine. Connect with us today and start moving forward with clarity, confidence, and peace. www.yourdivinejourneyllc.com.
At the Travel Bureau, we are dedicated to creating bespoke luxury experiences for the discerning traveler, specializing in detail-rich journeys designed with heart and intention. We turn your dream getaway into a beautiful, curated reality. Wherever you're going, the Travel Bureau will get you there in style, comfort, and joy.
If you're teaching urban, alternative, or non-traditional students and wondering why engagement feels harder than ever, the new book by Dr. Sohn A is for you. Unlocking Student Engagement isn't theory. It's real strategies for real classrooms, built on trust, relevance, and relationships. And educators across the country are already responding. Unlocking Student Engagement debuted at #1 in cultural pedagogies, philosophy and social aspects of education, educational professional development, and educational certification and development. Grab your copy today wherever you buy books, and let's change how engagement shows up in our classrooms.
Welcome back to Beyond the Margins.
You spoke about transformation,
For sure.
and the essence of education is to transform the learner, right?
Yeah.
And in the case of your econ teachers and many
Yeah,
other
yeah,
professors,
yeah.
right? Not just these guys,
For
you know,
sure.
there is no connection to the
For sure.
transformative power of the thing
For
that's
sure.
being taught and learned. And so that's a huge
Yeah.
gap. And you touched on another great piece. I don't know how we, disaggregate this and go back and touch on them, but the whole idea of seeing ourselves as educators as more than just a traditional teacher. We have to see ourselves as architects, as engineers, and as
Architects,
innovators,
man.
right?
Facts.
Because the old
Yes.
traditional systems, they just won't work. They just won't work. And
Yes.
how do we reach
Yes.
kids and move them? Not even kids, adult learners as well. How do we move them from where
For
they are
sure.
to where they want to be, and
Yeah.
really get to a space of transformation?
Now that's beautiful, man. If you don't mind, I will add one thing to that. I think one of the things that's been so helpful for me because of the cultural piece, like one of the things that I think is important, right, is just like Afrocentricity in a way where it's like helping our people like know like who we are, whose we
Yeah.
are, and like no matter what we've experienced, we've always had this ingenuity, this resilience, this spiritual urge, and like this pretty much God, just this anointing in a way, even amidst all the things we've gone through with enslavement and so on and so forth. But our people, we come from a lineage of people that have created a great things and continue to do so. So right a lot of time for these young people, for these learners, they don't know that part of like who we are, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
who was Mansa Musa? Like who was that?
Right,
Like,
right,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? So like
But
helping
look,
it,
but the irony is that we still love gold,
of course,
but we don't
yes.
know who Mansa
We don't,
Musa
we don't,
was,
yeah, we
right?
don't know. Yeah, we don't know who's giving
Yeah.
out gold bars and getting
Right,
folks
he's
out of the
giving out
dark
gold bars.
ages.
Like the
Yeah,
dogs are wearing gold, and
yes,
so this is very important. Now we're getting to identity, right?
yeah, for
And
sure.
the role of cultural relevance
Yeah,
to education. And
yeah,
can we even transform a learner if we do not tap into their identity?
got
Not
you.
the not to portray, meteorize
Yeah.
image,
Propagandized, image infrastructure.
propagandized, right?
Yeah.
Image. We're talking
Yeah.
about true identity. And
Yes.
so this is something that, is very much missing from the
Man.
educational landscape. Where does this responsibility lie
Man.
to ensure people in positions of learning can do so through their identity?
Man, that's a great question. I look at it kind of like two or threefold with that, because part of it, it's like in my situation, part of it came from home. There's like the home piece, the environment, but when it comes to education, right,
Mhm.
and like being in positions of learning, I think one is, again, it takes bravery, courage, and just willful defiance, right? Because right now, education, they're trying to ban books. There's books on ban lists, right? And so, how to fight to like make sure curriculum has like you're able to incorporate ethnic studies, incorporate cultural things, have Afrocentric components to the work when it comes to serving our Black babies, and being able to like look at curriculum and pedagogy in a particular way, right? Because part of it is curriculum, part of it is pedagogy. How are we teaching the curriculum,
Yep.
the pedagogical framework? So like how students are learning, how we actually taking information. Like we're like a metacognitive people. We're kinetic, we touch, we rhythmic, stuff like that. So even how we learn and receive
You like to get
information
up.
is, you know what I mean? We
Look,
have to
we get
move
up,
like
we get up at parties, we get up at church,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
get up at the game. We like to get
Yo,
up. And then we go to school and everybody say, sit down.
sit down.
We're
Don't move.
call and response people. You say
Call and
something,
response.
we say something back. But now I'm supposed to be quiet when you say something.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's that cultural dissonance.
So how do we educate teachers to understand that part, being brave enough to say how important this is, because it's going to not only be in the best interest of the students, but best interest of your school, because the rates will go up, their performance will go up. And then I think ultimately too, like, I mean, imagine, bro, like, you know how you just said, like, students, if you put the element table, the periodic table in a song, bro, everybody gonna learn it. It's gonna be easy. You all know what hydrogen and all that is quickly, right? So all these different things, right? So I think that's one thing, right? So how do we try from a policy standpoint, curriculum standpoint, center that piece? The other piece is for the actual educator themselves, right? Because there's some educators who don't know this stuff themselves. They don't know.
True.
They might not have the cultural knowledge or understand our impact to world history, right? So if you don't, and that's okay, take a step back, right? Do some research and connect with other educators who do that understand that kind of work. So even if that's outside the educational space, your local community and the local city you live in, is there any kind of programs or grassroots organizations that you would connect with to help you to kind of like learn that yourself, right? So you be able to incorporate that into the work that you're doing, right? And I think also supplemental learning and instruction is really fun too. Like, you know what I mean? Right now we got YouTube University. You got things you give students that's like fun that they can listen to or think about. You know, you got the actual coursework itself, but then kind of having things like co-ops that we used to do, like, you know, with the Black Panthers, having things on Saturdays or after hours in the community centers as well. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. But I think like ultimately that bravery of like stepping into it and knowing that, hey, this is missing. And so thinking about your positionality within a school or an organization. Okay, what sphere of influence that I have? Do I kind of should I take on a position of like going from the policy level, administration levels, you know, curriculum, pedagogy, or go on my sphere of influence of my students and incorporate some things into our classroom learning environment and kind of be focused on that. So as educators, we all have to make that decision on what that looks like for us, right? It could be a little risky, right? So the role that I have now, right? It's like risky, right? And you got to be okay with that, right? I think part of it is being that bravery. So like, we have book clubs. So, right, we're reading Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, or, you know, we're reading The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, you know, From the Browder File by Tony Browder, right, by the Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. These are all books that we're all going to read in our program, right? And so being able to incorporate these things into our learning, you know, I think is really important.
Until we do that,
yeah,
across the board in a universal and a uniform way, I think we just keep getting more of the same. It's how disenfranchisement, disengagement kicks in educational spaces. If it's not relevant, how long do we show up?
That's so true. And quite frankly, I mean, like, I think the hardest pill to swallow as educators is like realizing like what like that it, like kind of like almost like an Afro, like a, you know, like a Frantz Fanon, like Afro pessimism, like, yo, this thing is set to do this. So let's not beat our head on this. Let's create something that's our own. You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot there. So for example, you know, I didn't mention this, but like even with my own son, I have 2 kids. My son is 4. Like we're homeschooling him now. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're taking the power back in that way. It's like incorporate these things in a public school is an
Mm-hmm.
offering. So we're even doing that. And I have read a study where, which I'm excited to hear and learn more about, is that the highest demographic of folks that's going into homeschool are Black families. So that's really good to hear.
That is really good, and it begs the question about ownership. Who
Yeah,
owns the educational
for sure.
experiences of our
Yeah,
children? Do we wait for government, state entities to do it? Is it a function of the community? Is it mom and dad? Is it the church? Who has ownership of this? The idea of Saturday schools. If we need our histories lifted and elevated and told, how do we build structures, not just in my neighborhood, but in a way we
sure.
can do it, you know, here and there,
For sure. For
systems
sure.
to educate us for
Yep.
what we need in
Exactly.
today's society and the way we live
Exactly.
today.
Exactly.
What does culturally responsive healing look like? And
Mm.
what is his role in education or the liberation of learning? Do we need to heal the past hurts, or can we draw a line in the sand and say, look, no more? What's the role there of
That's a great.
culturally grounded healing?
There's some things around trauma informed care, healing centered engagement, healing centered care. There's weight and things that our people and the students in general carry into their schooling, right? Their day to day experiences, they bring that to
Yeah.
their school, right? So like, being able to understand, like, when it comes to small things, a kid comes late to class, you notice that they're late, right?
Mhm.
Now the traditional way, like, I'm going as a teacher going to assume that, one, they don't care, two, they're lazy, all these other things.
Mhm.
But the cultural side is like, okay, like, not just like the racial implications, the cultural, the socioeconomic, all these different things, understanding like, okay, what is this person bringing with them to
Yeah.
their learning experience, right?
Mhm.
So it's not that the student is lazy and kind of pathologizing them and saying they're lazy, I don't care about school. No, this kid took a bus 2.5 hours. This kid he had to watch his little brother and sister.
Mhm.
But there's all the things that you have to be aware of as far as what students are bringing to our learning spaces, right? Like, if a
Yeah.
kid is in class not wanting to sit down, you think it's something, why you not sitting down? Like, but you understand, hey, you have bigger conversation, you learn that they have like some abuse or something going on, and
Yeah.
they physically can't sit down. So like, I think
Uh,
these things are really important, kind of looking at the holistic development of our students and being able to meet them when it comes to cultural centered and cultural healing. As far as like, that's at the end of the day, it's like there's so many things from like the intergenerational trauma perspective that like that shows up in education that we have to like heal from. Like, it could be like, as far as students in math wanting to shy away from math, and it's like, no, like, your people are actually, they're the progenitors of math. They brought math into the world, like,
right, right.
right. So
You can learn math.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Yeah.
This is your stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so like, yeah, you know what I mean? So like, how do we try to heal from those parts of it, right? To kind of like have students like embrace that parts themselves,
Yeah.
because they have to know that and heal through that. So I think that's really important for teachers to be able to get that have that cultural kind of like, awareness and being able to understand when it comes to that healing part. That is super important. We can't just put a Band-Aid on it and say, we're gonna start here and move forward. We gotta, do some work as far as like the trauma informed care, the healing center engagement piece, and then from there move forward. But we can't like put a Band-Aid on something that's hemorrhaging and expecting different results.
So what happens when leadership is divorced from healing? Like
For sure.
we've seen recently
Yeah.
and throughout history, a lot of high profile, particularly Black men, fall. So what happens when, these boys we're dealing with in school, boys turn to men,
Man.
authority and leadership, power, position, money, all those,
Yeah,
now we have them. But what happens to leaders when we don't necessarily do that
for sure.
holistic work?
Yeah, Frederick Douglass said it best, man. It's easier to build strong boys and repair broken men. Although I agree with our ancestor when it comes to like that piece, but I would double down on that and say we got to do what's hard and restore our men, the broken men, because we perpetuate brokenness in our communities and our families if we don't address that brokenness, right? So I think part of it is like when it comes to masculinity and manhood, and like how do we reimagine what that looks like for men, and then kind of centering male experiences more, and like what that looks like in regards to the data, our lived experiences, understanding that right now that there's been a microscope placed on like masculinity in a way that's negative, right? As far as being able to like go being socialized one way to be like being hypersexualized as a young boy, and then
Yeah.
also like, all the different things that go into that domestic violence. It could be what we see in the media, all the different things that happen. So if we don't address that and help these young boys understand how to emote, how to identify their
Hmm.
emotions, how to, how to articulate, how to regulate their emotions in a way. Anytime you feel something or you got this urge you want to
Yeah,
escape
yeah.
through, it could be, pornography, it could be whatever it
Right.
is, video games, it could be whatever it is, women, all these different, you be able to identify that for yourself. So when you get in these positions, you have a better sense of your moral compass and how you're going to move and not be going by the whims of life and escaping and doing things that are destructive rather than constructive, right? How are you going to show up, fullness as a healed man, as a leader, as a husband, as a community member? What does this look like? I think that's why the healing work is so important, because that's why I became a male life coach, right? Working on men on purpose and fulfillment, reimagining their identity, embracing deeper meaning and taking decisive action steps toward a purpose-driven life and a life of fulfillment. But part of that is like, being able to work through, the adverse childhood experiences,
Yeah.
right? We can't, we got to work through all of that, what you went through with your family, your parents, how you were treated, and take ownership and have agency over that, right? Like how are you shaping your story, the story of your life, right? Like conquering challenges, emotional regulation, taking the necessary steps, and all those different things. There's a lot there to go through, but I think that's really important because like you said, so many men have fallen, right? Because it was something where an area they lack discipline in or something, but that lack of
Yeah.
discipline is connected to the deeper root of something they probably didn't heal from, right? And
Mhm.
so it's something that was broken in them or something they didn't heal from. So if we get to that root, we can then get to the part where like, okay, their discipline is up. So when they are in these positions, they're not tempted by certain things. They're not moved, right? So even for example, for in real life, like as a black man, as an attractive, married, young black man in the spaces I occupy, I work in education. I work with a lot of women, right? So
Yeah.
it's predominantly women. So like a lot of times is one of the things. If I wasn't where I was and I operate from a different place,
Hmm.
it would be dangerous for me. Or I would be doing things that would be risky at times because
Right.
I didn't have that discipline or whatever the case may be. And then the delineation from students, from this, that, and the third, and how I show up into the space, like embracing being a married man, being a husband,
Yeah.
being healed, working through my emotions. I cry in front of my students at times, like different things like that, showing this whole humanized version of a man and giving them that. So I think that's really important.
I think that's super important. I was listening this week to Jason Wilson, and he was talking about just this thing, how we have to get our men, our young boys, to be able to fully grasp the full spectrum of our emotions,
Emotions,
because
yeah,
it's impossible to suppress it. It's gonna come out. It
for
bubbles
sure.
forth.
Yeah,
And how do we get particularly black men to
for sure.
lean into being
Yeah,
authentic
for
in
sure.
a way that includes being, emotional and transparent,
I love that.
um,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and feeling safe in doing so?
Super
What's
important.
one lie that black men are told that they believe about themselves that you want to undo?
What's one lie? Man,
That
that's
black
a
men
good one.
we're told by society, by media, maybe even by our family and loved ones, that we need to undo in our community.
I would say there's that notion of like black boys and men like are just so strong, like they don't feel they can work through anything. They're super strong and just this hyper strength. And like I think because we take on this persona, we got to be strong. We got to fight through everything and and grind through everything and John Henryism and all these different things we do
Yeah,
because of that strength. We don't take time back to say, yo, well, think about I'm actually feeling weak right now. I'm actually hurt right
mhm,
now. I'm being able to identify because I'm strong, I'm so strong. I'm not able to identify the other full scope of their emotions or what I'm feeling because I have to put on this performative, be
yeah,
strong all the time, persona, in moments where like, yo, like my homie died today, or I broke
yeah,
up with my girlfriend, I lost my job, or whatever
yeah,
was going on in your life, my mental health is shot, whatever it may be. It's great to be strong in certain, it's good to have that strength, but then being able to sometimes like take a step back and say, I don't need to be strong in this moment. I need to heal. I need to work through that. I need to take time. I
yeah,
need to rest. I need to all the different things that's attributed to. I think part of it is like because you look at it, with enslavement, what they did as far as buck breaking and the tactics they did to get the strongest guy physically and do all the
mhm,
things to him in front of the community, right? To send shockwaves
yeah,
to
yeah.
everybody else. So, there's a lot there, man.
To that point, what's one truth that we don't hear enough of?
Black man, you are enough. Man, you are enough. You are enough for who you are, how you're wired. You are worthy, deserving. You know what I mean? You are enough, right? And so I think, we don't hear that. We don't get that reinforcement sometimes in our families, in our communities, with our loved ones, our friends. And so being able to know that, to humanize you, you're enough and you have value. So just knowing that as a baseline, can help you, know that, hey, give yourself grace, you know what I mean? Humanize your own self, you know what I mean? And being able to be authentically you, and walk in your truth, because you are enough and you matter.
We often move the goalposts a lot.
For sure.
We say, keep going, next thing
Yeah, yeah.
up. And so I think you're right. Men need to hear, you're enough right where you are, catch your breath. That doesn't negate the need for,
For sure.
progress or
Of
development.
course. Of
It
course.
just means that, we don't always have to press through brick walls just
Yeah.
because we can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
'Cause always performing, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's performing. Sometimes when it comes to the mask that we wear, performing for other people and all these other things, being this version of yourself for this group of people, being this version of that person, you know what I mean? Without being authentically you, no matter, who you're around, because you know that you're enough. Yeah.
Right, right. Now, I know that you're enough, brother, but I also
Thank
know
you.
that you're on the move. So what's on the horizon for you? What's next? I know, look, I
Yeah.
know we just said we shouldn't always do it, but it's different parts of the day. You know, maybe you
Yeah,
shouldn't
no
do it
doubt.
before lunch. But after
No
lunch,
doubt.
what's next? What's
Facts.
next for you?
Yeah, man. So a couple of things. I'm really excited. It's going to be an incredible year. Right now I'm working on a couple projects, but one that I want to, bring here today is I have a documentary that I'll be releasing, this year, entitled "Bigger Than Me," a Hakeem Croom story. It's pretty much a story about defying the odds and flourishing anyway, going from an underdog to an overcomer, right? And being able to
Yeah.
defy the odds, and being able to send that message to other people, my people all across the world and its country, who all have to defy the odds in their own right. No matter if you was a kid growing up in poverty, a kid that's an underdog, growing up with lack of resources, mom and dad may not, growing up in a stable environment, you in foster care, you was formerly incarcerated, whatever that may be for you.
Mhm.
And so in my journey, in my story, I'm so thankful that how God has placed me in different places and spaces, to where, and experiences that I've had to go through, right? Go through to grow through, now I can show through this documentary of, like, just taking away some of those tenets of, like, there's an undercurrent and undergirding with the story, with the documentary of, like, you're going to see the cultural aspects. You're going to see the things that help me defy the odds and flourish, and understand that it's bigger than me. You're going to see the family dynamics, the faith, the leaps of faith, the spiritual parts of it that really tie into how it's all bigger than me. I know what the bigger than me concept speaks to. It's bigger than me, it's bigger than all of us, right? There's part of, like, my success is inextricably linked, to my community, to Harlem, to all the spaces I've occupied, my friends, my family, all the people that poured into me, and also, to God and how God has used me, right? So it's bigger than all of us. I'm looking to, like I said earlier, man, liberate the
Mhm.
beliefs, inspire the action, and transform lives of people, across the world. So I'm excited to get it out. It's going to be slated for this year. For
Okay.
this, we're looking to have that release this year, but super excited.
Well, know that here at Beyond the Margins, we're pulling for you. We're
Thank you.
excited about the documentary. We're excited about the work you're doing in the community. We love what you're doing and the way you're
Thank you.
supporting not just
Thank you.
first generation learners, but men. Boys turn to men and we never get the work done. And how
Amen.
can we educate and transform lest we do it? And the
Yes,
last thing I'll say to you is we can never have enough stories of resilience
for sure.
in our community. People who beat the odds,
Yes.
people who understand the challenges and can look back at the community and say, hey, look, here's a blueprint, here's a path, or better yet, if it doesn't exist, let me help you make it.
Let me help you make
And
it.
so thank you for your work, brother.
Man, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the great work you're doing, Dr. Butts, with Beyond the Margins, and this podcast, giving a voice to so many people, to share their expertise. Like you said, we need this kind of platform. We need to have these stories shared on a massive scale, to have that reach, because there's not a whole lot that we hear as far as these kind of stories and testimonies. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story, share my expertise and my gifts, through Beyond the Margins podcast. I'm appreciative. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it again soon. As Hakeem Croom reminds us, education isn't just about degrees or discipline. It's about identity, belonging, and becoming. When young people are surrounded by culture, consistency, and adults who show up with intention, they don't just survive systems, they transcend them. Presence matters, belonging matters, and culture matters. I wonder, what would happen if every school became the kind of place where every student heard, early and often, you belong here?
Next time on Beyond the Margins.
What is it about teachers that get us so committed to the pacing guide and going forward regardless if the kids are picking up what we're putting down?
think, it's the mindset of the teacher and the school system. They're stuck in a system. When I was teaching, oh my goodness, I would just go against the grain, not because I wanted to, but because my student needed that extra push. And, I was always under the vision of, it's better for them to walk out of my classroom knowing, perfecting, and being able to implement and execute.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Margins. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, share this episode, rate and review the show, and let's keep the dialogue going. If you would like to connect, email me at Sohn@beyondthemarginsllc.com. That's SOHN at beyondthemarginsllc.com. It's been a pleasure being with you. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, keep leading, and keep pushing beyond the margins.